Good evening. Welcome to tonight's match between the South Albany Redhawks and our Corvallis High School Spartans. The OSAA requests that you model good sportsmanship by refraining from derogatory cheers, chants, or behavior towards students, coaches, officials, or other spectators. Any verbal, written, or physical conduct relating to race, gender, age, color, national origin, ethnicity, disability, sexual orientation, or religion will not be tolerated. Such conduct may subject the violator to be removed from the event and result in penalties assessed against your school. Any spectator removed from this event may be banned from attending future interscholastic events. Speak out when you see inappropriate behavior by immediately notifying event management staff or a school administrator. And now it's time to introduce both teams. First, the visitors, South Albany. Number 00, Jacob Glenn. Number 0, Zachary Cisneros. Number 2, Anthony Averola Flores. Number 3, Daniel Lara. Number 4, Victor Rios. Number 5, Ruben Alvarado Cortez. Number 6, Brian Sanchez. Number 7, Carlos Reyes Aviles. Number 8, Thomas Garcia. Number 9, Bova Ubenia. Number 10, Jose Zaragoza Perez. Number 12, Diego Ramirez. Number 14, Daniel Martinez. Number 15, Logan Bond. Number 16, Brayden Mesa. Number 17, Ivan Ortiz Torres. Number 20, Christopher Monroy Torres. Number 22, Sergio Lara. Managers, Jaime Santos Sanchez and Luis Perez Hernandez. They are coached by Sam Tweeden. And now, our Spartans. Number 0, Carl Mellinger. Number 2, Eric Quanson. Number 3, Mauricio Nieves Bernal. Number 4, Kellen Filker. Number 6, Gus Nerdzak. Number 7, Joe Nunez. Number 8, Ian Hale. Number 10, Moises Quesada. Number 11, Jackson Myers. Number 12, Ian Spehar. Number 13, Jonah Craig. Number 14, Jesus Pulido. Number 15, Nathaniel Estrada. Number 16, Edgar Monroy. Number 17, John Foltz. Number 18, Luke Rabar Boland. Number 19, Naif Al-Sharif. Number 20, Elias Gallardo Rosas. Number 21, Spencer Vigilant. Number 24, Gerardo Gonzalez. And number 25, Max Kelly. The Spartans are coached by Jack Foley. At this moment, please rise as we honor our flag with a Star-Spangled Banner, sung tonight by Linnea Lochner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good evening and welcome to Corvallis High School for an elite contest of two of the best teams in the Mid-Willamette Conference. We've circled this date from the beginning of the season. It's the Corvallis Spartans coming off their state championship last fall, facing the only team that beat them last year, the South Albany Redhawks. On Oregon Sports Beat, alongside Tony Vandermeer, this is Josh Worden welcoming you to Bob Holt Stadium. Tony, we thought both of these teams would be state title contenders entering this season. Both had some shaky starts to a certain degree. The Spartans and the Redhawks each lost 3 of their first 6 matches, but have since won 4 straight games. Seems like they both hit their stride, and we could be in for a slugfest tonight.
Yeah, it should be a pretty exciting match. Both teams know each other quite well from playing together in club soccer, and this has developed into a pretty good rivalry over the last few years. I think in previous to when Woodburn was in the conference, they were kind of the supreme soccer power at on the boys' side. And since they've moved to the 4A level, this rivalry has been the one that's been pretty significant. So I'm expecting some pretty exciting things. I think they are comfortable playing against each other, and my hunch is it's going to be a pretty physical game.
This match brought to you by Even Flow Plumbing. Even Flow Plumbing specializes in complete plumbing and drain cleaning services, and their flat rates mean no surprises at the end of the job. When you need a pro, go with the flow. Even Flow Plumbing. You can find them at 541-738-8853. Even Flow Plumbing, specializing in both commercial and residential clients. Also, Praise Jesus, a new food truck to the Corvallis, Albany area, and a proud supporter of high school sports, offering gourmet grilled cheese sandwiches with soups and sides featuring fresh local produce. Praise Jesus is ready to come to your event or workplace. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. All right, just about set for Corvallis and South Albany here at Corvallis High School. The Spartans wearing the black kits tonight, working towards the goal on the right side of your screen, towards the scoreboard in the west end of this field, and South Albany in the white tops and the red shorts tonight. Corvallis coming into this game with a 5-5 overall record, 4-0 in league play. South Albany 7-3 overall, a 4-1 league mark. Their only loss was the conference opener against Central, but they've played well since then.
Yeah, that Central game, I think it stuck with the South Albany kids, gave motivation to work pretty hard because I think they were disappointed themselves. I think since that game, I'm not sure Central's won a league game. and while South has kind of turned it around and done well since then.
One of the players to watch for tonight for Corvallis is Jonah Craig, wearing the captain sleeve and wearing number 13, a midfielder for the Spartans. South Albany has experimented even with a 3-5-2 formation at times this year, and even in what they'll kind of stick with today, a 3-4-3. They like to plug up the midfield, play up to 5 people in that area, and really control the center of the field. So the passing from Corvallis' midfielders, including Jonah Craig, will be critical tonight. And what you see, Tony, what part of Corvallis' formation do you think is the biggest part to watch, key to their success tonight?
It's been fun seeing how they've adjusted. They experimented with a 4-4-2, and previous to the kickoff, it looked like they were lining up in a 4-3-3, which I'm not so sure I've seen in the last couple of games we've broadcasted them. So it'd be interesting to see, because Coach Tweeton's decision to go 3-4-2 might match up well against that 4-3-3.
Daniel Lara clearing that one away for South Albany, one of 2 sophomore twins, both Daniel and Sergio Lara on the back end. That was one of the things that head coach Sam Tweeton in his first year at South Albany pointed out, was this back line for the Redhawks has played well, and they're all first-year starters. In fact, mostly first-year varsity players on the back line, including Daniel and Sergio Lara, first-year starters back there. But they played well. In fact, both teams, as far as the defenses, have allowed just 2 goals in their last 4 games. Carlos Reyes Aviles would like to change that against Corvallis, one of the main players for South Albany. But that one cleared away by Carl Mellinger, who gets the start in goal tonight. Max Kelly has been the main goalkeeper to start games this season for Corvallis. Mellinger was injured to start the season with a hand injury. Did play at forward a fair amount, but Mellinger gets the start. Edgar Monroy taking up space for Corvallis, but ultimately cleared away by Lara. Here's Spencer Vingelen for Corvallis. Back to Nathaniel Estrada.
What's nice about this this rivalry, or the growing rivalry, is that both squads are pretty comfortable trying to play their best game and their best styles against the other opponent. I don't think they necessarily fear each other. And so, having had the chance to be involved in this game for the last 3 years, what I'm seeing out here is what I've seen in the last 3 years is both teams are playing very comfortable, stroking the ball around, and so it'll be interesting to see who gets their rhythm first and create some scoring opportunities. They're kind of filling each other out right now, it seems like.
That ball poked away by Mauricio Nieves Bernal, but Daniel Sanchez ends up with it for South Albany. It is a slick turf at Bob Holt Stadium, but these players seem to be handling it well. I haven't seen any players slipping yet. The rain was coming down in a downpour during pregame warm-ups, but it stopped shortly before kickoff. No rain at the moment as a foul will be called just outside the box for South Albany. Looks like Carlos Reyes Aviles was the victim of that foul, and South Albany in their first set piece of this ball game.
It'll be interesting to see if it's a distance where you probably want to go ahead and just take a shot on frame and test the goalkeeper out. So it'll be interesting to see if they do have a set play on, or if there's going to be a strike on goal here.
Ivan Ortiz Torres is behind the ball right now. Next to him is Anthony Areola Flores. So Carl Mellinger will be tested for the first time tonight. Blocks that one away. Will lead to a corner kick, but Mellinger extending in goal.
That was struck well by Ivan, and I'm not so sure that was going to be totally on frame, but the goalkeeper Mellinger wanted to make sure, and his range, that's the kind of thing that gets into the shooter's head, that they know they're going to have to be pretty fine to get a goal against him today.
First corner of tonight's ball game played out well by Corvallis, but South Albany with the throw in from Sanchez to Ivan Ortiz Torres. Left-footed cross is poked away. Vova Hubenya loses it for South Albany, and Corvallis played most of this game so far on their own end of the field, but Edgar Monroy, the ball doesn't quite get to him on that diagonal pass. Spencer Vingelen, a through ball back to Edgar, who wants to unleash from 45 yards out, but Zachary Cisneros is there for South Albany. Cisneros, a senior goalkeeper, has traded time with Jacob Glenn this season as Estrada misplays that one. Carlos Reyes Aviles, quick touch pass back to the outside. And Estrada is there. Will be a goal kick for the Spartans.
Estrada, he's impressed me all season long, the 4 or 5 games I've seen Corvallis play. And what I like about that is what he just demonstrated there. He's willing to track back and do some defending rather than wanting to be that midfielder that gets forward or that outside player that wants to get forward so much. Especially in games where Corvallis is dominant, and he stays in his position, does his job, and gives some strength and stability for some of the other players to really shine.
Edgar Monroy, long pass to Mauricio Nieves Bernal, the 2 players leading this team in goals scored. Mauricio in the coffin corner. Finally does earn, no, loses it. It'll be a throw in for South Albany. Mauricio thought it should be their ball or maybe a foul, but it goes back to the Red Hawks. Both of these teams have had pretty similar schedules of late as Nathaniel Estrada tries to poke one past Chris Monroy Torres. Both teams on 4-game win streaks right now. South Albany has wins against Crescent Valley, Dallas, and Lebanon. All those teams are kind of in the middle to the bottom of the standings, but also they beat West Albany, which is in the top 3. The top 3 teams in the conference right now are South Albany and Corvallis. The 2 teams you're watching right now, and West Albany. So South Albany headhunting for Corvallis, and if the Red Hawks get a victory tonight, they'll establish themselves at the top of the conference as a long shot just over the crossbar barely. Spencer Vingelen unleashes one, thought he got a tip off the goalkeeper, and it looks like he did.
So, to be honest, I'm surprised. Zach Cisneros has got a great reputation as one of the top goalies in the conference, if not the state. Edgar earlier and just now, Spencer trying to take some shots from distance and challenging him. And both of them weren't too far off frame. But then again, Zach did a great job covering his goal.
This is Eric Ponce who will take this corner kick for Corvallis. Short one to Jonah Craig. Carlos Reyes Aviles pressuring and forces the error from Corvallis. Can't make the most of that corner kick.
Josh, you've been talking about both these squads have kind of hit their stride, and so I'm impressed with South Albany's start. Haven't seen them play a few games. I saw them get upset by Central at the start of the league play, and I know the players weren't very happy at all with their performance that night. So for them to come out and play this well at this start, I think is a testament to the growth they've had in this last few weeks.
Yeah, let's talk about that loss to Central. Sam Tweeten brought that one up in particular because that was a bit of a surprise for South Albany, which really expected to come in, maybe even surpassing Corvallis this year as the favored team in the conference. But that loss, 4-2 at home to Central to open up conference play, was an eye-opener, said Sam Tweeten. And they had a 2-hour film session after that. It got pretty personal, Sam Tweeten said, pointing out a lot of mistakes and things that needed to improve, and things have definitely turned around since then. And that was kind of the issue coming in. He knew he was inheriting a lot of talented players, and those first practice sessions, he said he was surprised top to bottom how good the talent was. But he wanted to challenge them and say, look, we can be a good team just based on our talent alone, but we can be a great team if we really push it. And that Central game was an example of them not pushing it, not making the most of their talent. And they had an eye-opener, but they played great since then. Edgar Monroy fires one from over 25 yards out, and it almost gets inside the far post.
That's a great opportunity. That the ball dropped to him and misplayed by the South defender. So Edgar's a pretty clever player, so he thought he'd maybe give Zach another test, and he wasn't too far off frame. You're talking about Coach Tweeten and the impression or the imprint he's put on the program, and he's been doing a great job in terms of getting the kids' attention. So, but that Central game, I think South Albany has not beat Central in 5 years, and it's one of those matchup things that just kind of scratch your head over, where for some reason Central has always kind of had South's number. But this year with the graduation and the losses and some of the other results Central's had, it still is an even bigger head scratcher. So for Coach Tweeten to pull some positives out of that whole experience is probably going to serve these Redhawks well as they want to have a deep run in the playoffs again this year.
Carlos Reyes Aviles trying to distribute, but taken away by Corvallis' back line. Jackson Myers in there. Ponce can't recover that one, and Ivan Ortiz-Torres will throw it in for South Albany. Reyes Aviles is the most dangerous player for South Albany. Their best attacker, if anything, this season. As this ball will go back to Corvallis, what Sam Tweeten has talked about is that he's learned that he doesn't have to be the only goal scorer, how to set up his teammates for scoring chances. You got to coach him last year, Tony, when you were the head coach with South Albany. What have you seen from the growth of Carlos Reyes Aviles over the last year or two?
Well, what I like is that mentality that Coach Tweeten's trying to pull out of him.
And here is Carlos trying to draw a foul, but not given by the official, says to get up.
So maybe showing some of the cleverness or maturity or more sophisticated play in terms of trying to draw a foul in a dangerous area. So, but really what I've seen out of Carlos is his comfort on getting the ball under pressure. The free kick he got about 8 minutes ago, he was real strong on the ball, settling it with his chest, and those are the kind of things where he's just comfortable letting the game come to him as opposed to trying to dominate and take over, because even at the Oregon high school level, that's pretty hard to do.
Corvallis taking over on this foul. Jonah Craig with the free kick at the 45-yard line, played into the box. Diego Ramirez foots it away, and a header from Sanchez, but Corvallis still on the attack. Mauricio Nieves Bernal took a shot on the leg while he was trying to get after that ball spinning towards the sideline. Luckily, he looks like he's all right.
It's nice to see the sportsmanship and the concern for one another. Like I said earlier, these guys play with each other, against each other in club soccer. They play each other 12 months out of the year. So I didn't think there's anything malicious. I was actually impressed with Laura, the way he attacked that ball. And I'm not so sure it was even a foul, but he did strike Nieves Bernal pretty hard.
Leads to perhaps the most dangerous chance for Corvallis so far today. Eric Ponce to the left. It'll be taken by Jonah Craig, or at least it was going to be before they're stopped in their tracks.
There's a spot in the field, the way Jonah strikes the ball. He can get a dangerous in-swinger that the guys in the back of the box can attack, but it could also be putting on frame, so the goalie's going to have to worry about it whipping along that back post.
Mauricio Nieves Bernal is the Spartan player on the wall. Craig does lay a grounder in the top of the box towards Edgar Monroy. Doesn't get to him. Craig trying to track it back down, and he does get back to it. But South Albany flips the field. Unfortunately, it looks like Jonah Craig took a foot to the shin or some sort of injury. He's still on the turf on the near sideline. He ran almost from the corner about 50 yards down the field to get that free ball, but paid for it.
Yeah, the South Albany forward was tracking hard, trying to pressure him, and got in late. He fouled him. I'm surprised it wasn't called. He got in pretty late and laid some pretty heavy lumber. Glad that Jonah was able to get up and walk that off, hopefully.
This production of Mid-Willamette Conference Soccer brought to you by Even Flow Plumbing. Both commercial and residential clients served by Even Flow Plumbing. They're fully bonded, insured, licensed, and perfect for every plumbing need. You can find them at 541-738-8853. When you need a pro, go with the flow. Even Flow Plumbing. Mauricio Nieves Bernal can't quite stop that one before it goes off the sideline. Jose Zaragoza Perez, a striker for South Albany, trying to lead the attack for the Redhawks alongside Carlos Reyes Aviles and Brian Sanchez in the mix right now. Jonah Craig, who looks as healthy as ever, able to spin away. But Chris Monroy Torres wins the ball against Jackson Myers and Ponce. Going to the corner against Eric Ponce. Keeps it in but loses it. Looked like that may have caught the arm of Ivan Ortiz Torres, and it did. Nathaniel Estrada playing up on the wing for Corvallis, coming back from his defender spot. Jonah Craig fakes a left-footed shot, attack space into the box. Craig over to Estrada. Could he swing one in from just inside the box? And Craig has it taken away.
So that was a good movement on Jonah's part. As I said in the last broadcast, becoming more and more of a fan of the way he plays and the stability that he provides. If you remember in that 5-0 win, as Coach Foley was kind of emptying the bench, he felt like he needed to keep Jonah in there for the stability. But the movement he just showed right there was something I haven't seen yet this year, where he took a ball and ran and tried to break down South Albany's shape by running with the ball instead of trying to find that through pass. And those are the things that, as he adds that to his game, is going to be even more effective.
Last year, these two teams squared off at South Albany High School, and Corvallis suffered its first and only loss of the season, 1-0 on a free kick with just seconds to go in the ballgame. Ozzy Ramirez on frame. Jose Zaragoza Perez trying to get past the Corvallis defense. That ball looked like it hit the shoulder of Nathaniel Estrada. Kept his arm close to his body, but they do roll handball, and South Albany with a free kick.
So it was a little closer last time, but Ivan Ortiz had a pretty good strike on almost on frame. So we'll see if he tries to test Riley from this distance.
Almost halfway through the first half tonight as Ivan Ortiz Torres goes high over Carl Mellinger. This game between Corvallis and South Albany also brought to you by Praise Cheese's Food Truck, a sponsor of tonight's broadcast and our area's newest food truck offering gourmet grilled cheese. Praise Cheese's is proud to feature cheeses from the Oregon State University Creamery Department and would love to come to your event or workplace. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. That's Praise Cheese's. Jonah Craig takes it. Tries to find a cutting attacker. It's not played correctly, and Naif Al-Sharif is almost there to clean it up. Diego Ramirez clears.
This game's got a great start to it, I think, Josh. Corvallis has had to defend a little bit more than they probably had in the last couple of weeks, and it's given South some confidence.
Edgar Monroy tries to turn and almost grounds that one to the right of Zachary Cisneros, but he's able to scramble over to it.
So it feels like the way they retract on defense and how they're trying to pay special attention to Carlos Reyes, that they're aware that South does have an ability to put them under some pressure. So to be honest, early on in the game against Crescent Valley the other night, they were going forward with a great bit of confidence. But I think they're a little fearful of South Albany, the counterattack, and so that makes the game even. And but also Corvallis' has been very dangerous on the quick counters.
Jackson Myers gets in on the foul on Reyes Aviles. So South Albany with a free kick. Mentioned that win last year for South Albany. Asked Chad Foley what he remembers from that game last year when his team lost their only defeat of the whole season. And he said, you know what, I don't really think about it too much, and it doesn't bother me because we got revenge. And indeed they did. 3-0 in the semifinals led to Corvallis facing LaSalle Prep in the championship, as that shot will find Carl Mellinger, but not close to the net. Go ahead, Tony.
That was the second time in 3 years that happened, where South got a great result at home in regular season. Just a couple weeks later, lost to Corvallis in the playoffs here at Bob Holt Stadium. So, as I was saying before we came on the air, Chad does a great job not sweating or overemphasizing any one game throughout the year and getting his team peaking for the playoffs. And that's what he did. And so both these schools have beaten each other 3 out of the last 4 years. Corvallis was able to get the victories in the playoffs in 2018 and in 2016.
Moises Quijada enters this game for Corvallis for the first time. Got the start in our last broadcast, the last game for Corvallis in the rivalry against Crescent Valley, and he made an impact early, getting a steal, as Jonah Craig may have touched the ball with his hand there. It's not called, and that led to a goal by Mauricio Nieves-Bernal. Carlos Reyes-Aviles pressuring Jackson Myers, who's able to control and let the ball roll out, leading to a goal kick.
That's good, strong defense, shielding the ball out for a goal kick. I was looking forward to this game to see how Corvallis' center backs would match up against Carlos and Jose Zaragoza. And to this point, they've done very well.
These two teams have traded regular season victories the last few years. South Albany winning last year 1-0. The year before, it was a 3-1 final with Corvallis winning. Another 3-1 final in favor of South Albany back in 2016 as Edgar Monroy tries to place one in front of Naif Al-Sharif. Good defense by Ramirez on the back end. Back in 2015, it was South Albany 2-0. Before that, it was 2013 and 14 were both CHS victories. 2-1 was the final. So both of these teams have had victories back and forth, been pretty evenly matched over the years, and it's only been even more heightened as these teams have been state title contenders the last couple of years and facing off in the semifinals in the bracket last year. And that could happen again. I mean, these teams could be playing each other in the state championship game this fall.
That'd be a great thing to see. Good for the Mid-Willamette Conference. It traditionally has been a power in boys soccer. Last year, I think we had 3 out of the 4 semifinalists at the 5A level, with Corvallis and South playing here in one semi, and then Central and LaSalle in the other. And since we've gone to the 5A system, it's been about 14 years. I think 9 or 10 of those years it was the Mid-Willamette League team that's been state champions.
And as the great conference it is, this game will decide perhaps the conference victor, or at least who takes supremacy in the conference at this point in the season. After this, Corvallis will face Lebanon on the road at Monday, 4:30 p.m. for that contest. Whereas South Albany will face Crescent Valley at home on Tuesday. A crisp evening for soccer here in the Mid-Willamette Valley at Bob Holt Stadium at Spartan Field. I'm Josh Worden on Oregon Sports Beat alongside Tony Vandermeer, the coach of South Albany last year, since taken over by Sam Tweeten, former Oregon State men's soccer player.
Sam didn't finish playing too long ago. I think this is his second year out of college. He played 4 years. I believe he was a 4-year starter for Steve Simmons at Oregon State as a center back. And to be honest, I've seen the influence he's had on Diego Ramirez's growth as a defender, as well as the Laura twins.
That back line has been impressive, as Sam Tweeten has pointed out. Like you said, a defender himself. Started 62 games at Oregon State in his 4-year career, originally from Fort Collins, Colorado. He spent a lot of time at Paul Lorenz Field, playing over 1,500 minutes his senior year in the black and orange.
The youth soccer club in Albany is called Total Football Academy Willamette. They've done a great job feeding players into South Albany, and the top players at West Albany all play for TFA as well. And so they put together a U23 team. We've mentioned that in the earlier broadcast. So a couple of these players, Carlos Reyes and Edgar Monroy, got to play with these older guys. And Sam Tweeten was actually a player playing right in the middle of the park with Ozzie Ramirez. And so not only is he getting to coach Carlos and a couple of these other guys, he got to play with them last summer.
Yeah, that was one thing he was pretty excited to talk about, as there's a South Albany player injured towards the far sideline. Sam played for that TFA Willamette team, and we broadcasted their match against PDX FC, a 4-2 victory for TFA Willamette. And just in that game, Edgar Monroy was in for TFA Willamette, in fact, scored the go-ahead goal. Carlos Reyes-Aviles was also playing in that contest, and Sam Tweeten, it sent it to U23 squad, and he was playing defender in that game as well. So he got to play alongside those guys and now coaches them, or coaches Carlos, and is coaching against Edgar. And he said, you know, playing against them gives you a different perspective on who they are. Looks like the South Albany player, by the way, who's still staying in the game, is not on the roster, actually. Still looking for who that is. But Sam Tweeten said, I've heard a few people say that Carlos or Edgar are overhyped, and playing with them has made me realize that's just not true. They are pretty darn good. As that goes right into the wall on the free kick by Edgar. Still sends one almost on frame, but will be a goal kick.
One of the nice things for the folks that are involved in soccer and the year-round scene is there's been some opportunity for some of these top players from both these squads here tonight to play with each other at the club level. Last year in the winter, there was a team that had Carlos Reyes and Edgar Monroy and somebody who played.
Edgar Monroy from 25 yards out goes far post, gets it by Cisneros, and Corvallis is on the board first. That ball traveled a long way to get to the net, but well hit by Edgar Monroy.
Edgar, that's his third strike at that far post in his first 26 minutes, excuse me, in this game. So I was making comment that he's trying to test Zach out, and he was pretty successful in that one. That was a great shot.
Edgar Monroy coming off a 2-goal performance in their last game, had a hat trick earlier in the conference season. Scores with the right cleat from, that was 25 yards vertically, and plus all the lateral distance that thing had to travel to go across the face of the goal. And Zachary Cisneros couldn't quite extend out to reach that one, and Corvallis is up 1-0.
I'm not so sure Zach caught that ball right coming off his feet. It might have been unsighted, but then he had a slow reaction to the shot. But again, I think that's why Edgar's been taking those shots. That's the fourth or fifth shot from distance that Corvallis has put on, and that was the first one on frame.
So Corvallis, which was shut out last year by South Albany in that 1-0 loss, is on the board against South Albany here today. Edgar Monroy netting that one for the Spartans. One of the first goals South Albany has given up of late. South Albany coming off a 2-0 victory at Lebanon and a 2-1 win versus West Albany. Also shut out Dallas before that. So only one goal allowed in their previous 3 matches, trying to get one of their own here. But Carl Mellinger is able to find that one in front of the net.
A nice reaction, reaction to the goal and a quick counterattack movement. It'd be interesting to see how South reacts or responds to that. If they can continue to try to be positive in their play, or if they're going to get the yips and maybe lose some confidence.
Chris Monroy Torres passing right in front of Edgar Monroy, his cousin. 2 starters here for each school playing against each other today. Long diagonal pass, but nobody's home for South Albany.
So one of the things that's, to be honest, has helped Carlos Rey's development is playing at that high level. We talked about the U23 team and top club team that he got to play with Edgar. You have those 2 guys, and John Sarna was the 3rd player. He was a Crescent Valley alum who's up at, I think he's down at he's at OIT playing college soccer after taking a year off. So to have those 3 guys playing as your 3 forwards, there's no way you can just look at one player and focus on one player, because you have 3 such dangerous forwards on one team.
Carlos Reyes Aviles, left-footed dominant, gets to his left cleat, but that pass is cleared away. And here's Moises Quijada on a run. To his right is Mauricio Nieves Bernal. Goes back to the middle of the field to Edgar Monroy. Mauricio is offside. And will not count, and the flag goes up.
That was a great turn out in the middle third of the field by Tejada, and then to go and accelerate away from the defender created a pretty scary moment for South, and especially when you're able to lay a ball off to Edgar.
Both Mauricio and Edgar put on a show against Crescent Valley, scoring 2 goals apiece in their crosstown rivalry against the Raiders here at Corvallis High School. Edgar already 1 goal tonight, and Mauricio almost adding 1 there, but offside on that one. Elias Gallardo Rosas on the back line for Corvallis. The cross in, and not able to get a foot on it, not cleared very well. Braden Mesa was in the box. Ivan Ortiz-Torres with it, but stolen away by Jackson Myers. South Albany has had a lot of good chances tonight. They've had good possession, gotten towards the box a lot, not converted it into a goal, but they've been aggressive. Well played by Spencer Vindelen to cut that one away. Nifty move from Joe Nunez. Ahead to Quijada. Nunez gets it back. Cisneros wanted an offside call. He won't get it. Vindelen tries to turn it towards the top corner. Wishes he could have that one back.
Again, Tejada with some good technical skill and also didn't get worked physically off the ball there and forced a mistake or some panic defending by Laura. And I think Coach was talking before the game about discouraging his defenders from stabbing and diving in the way he just did right there. And so Corvallis was unfortunate to not have a 2-goal lead.
Seems like we haven't spent very much time in the middle of the field today. It's like we both go into the box on one team and go the opposite way to the other side. And although we've only seen 1 goal tonight, we've spent a lot of time around the net in the first 30 minutes of this Mid-Willamette Conference soccer game, including right now in Moises Quijada, again attacking. Gus Lursak, who has entered this game as a substitute, passes off to Jonah Craig. This cross almost gets behind the defense, would be offside even if Joe Nunez had a chance.
Good get flicked on for a corner kick. That was a pretty good effort there on Jonah's part. So both coaches are playing players going to their bench early in the first half. To be honest, I think maybe they're trying to develop some depth for the playoffs, to have the freshmen come in. So I think it's the earliest we've seen him come in for Corvallis this year. And on the south side, Braden Mesa getting some run here in the first half. Had a great chance with the ball that came into the box a few minutes ago. And I'm not so sure you realize how open he was. Could have maybe settled the ball and had a chance on frame.
Eric Ponce, the right-footed corner kick, swings one in, headed by Monroy. Can't get all of it, but Joe Nunez on the second chance. Corvallis leads 2-0. Was batted around for a moment, and Joe Nunez found himself open enough to put it in the back of the net.
So somebody that doesn't end up on the scoreboard on that is the Corvallis defender that really didn't have a chance to get a knock on frame, but he still went up and challenged the south defender. So Diego Ramirez got a clearance, but it didn't get it high and wide, and dropped down for Nunez, who took his chance well and buried it. But again, the Corvallis forward that chased down the cross and jumped up and attacked and maybe even unsighted Ramirez. So his clearance header wasn't the quality that he'd want. Corvallis needs to get credit for that. And those are the kind of things sometimes people don't notice.
One of the things that Corvallis coach Chad Foley has brought up this season is he's liked the scoring chances that have come off their corner kicks, but haven't turned enough of them into goals, especially with the volume of corners they've gotten. So I'm sure he likes to see Corvallis getting a goal off a set piece right there. Their second goal of this ball game, kicked in by Joe Nunez. He's in the book alongside Edgar Monroy as the 2 scorers tonight for the Spartans. Corvallis works a lot on those set pieces, and it's fun to see the names they have for the corners and their play calls. And they have different themes, says Chad Foley, for the different corner kicks, just for the names of those plays. One theme a couple of years ago was cereals, so they had Cocoa Puffs, they had tricks. Last year was Top Gun, so like Maverick, for example. This year they go Will Ferrell characters as their theme. So Ricky Bobby, Jackie Moon, Buddy the Elf. They've got Ron Burgundy, 2 different calls. The one called Ron, one called Burgundy, Mugatu. So they go all out when it comes to being creative and naming those corner kicks.
It was fun hearing that in the pregame meeting. What I'd love to do is find out what in the heck do they do with all these different plays. Because this is the first time I think we've seen them score on a corner kick, and it was well taken, but it was also fairly nondescript. It was ball played in, attacked, and the knockdown came straight to Nunez. Again, who relaxed and hit the ball right where he needed to be in the back of the net.
And I wonder if the name relates to the play in any particular way. I mean, does a Jackie Moon have a certain characteristic that relates to the semi-pro star, or is it just an arbitrary name? Probably that, but you never know. Either way, I like the creativity.
That makes you want to come out and just see what they do at practice.
Jonah Craig is behind this ball for the free kick for Corvallis alongside Edgar Monroy. Jonah Craig will take it. Left-footed blocks into the wall. Diego Ramirez, one guy's in there, and Zachary Cisneros slides in. Corvallis coming off its state championship from a year ago. South Albany had their number last year in that 1-0 victory, but Corvallis coming back strong in this regular season game as Gus Lursak has the ball at his feet, taking up space. Misplayed it a little bit, but does get it to Nunez, still with a chance. Joe in the box. Edgar Monroy comes flying in to try to reclaim it. Edgar, who's already scored a long goal with his right foot, waiting for a chance to try another one. Poked away by Daniel Lara.
Yeah, so Daniel was successful there poking the ball away, but again, he's reaching out, getting his hips at a bad angle. I'm not so sure you want to do that too often against Corvallis' forwards.
It was interesting to hear how Chad Foley talked about defending Carlos Reyes Aviles and how Carlos tries to get defenders to stab. That was the same thing about Edgar Monroy, who plays this one into the box and cleared away. When we talked to LaSalle Prep head coach Seth Altschuler about how to defend Edgar, he said, well, you can't stab. That's the main thing. Can't get out of your line, can't reach too much and get out of position rather than shepherding him and being a little more calm defensively. So I think that's a big credit to both of those players to get that amount of attention and coaching from their leaders. Just in particular, both Edgar and Carlos are dangerous players, especially when the defender gets out of their element stabbing. Bindle in a through ball to Gus Lursak, the freshman ahead to Edgar Monroy, a little bit too far for the senior.
We're gonna have to check out with Coach Foley if Gus Lursak's been playing some with the JV1 team as a freshman, because we haven't seen him play a ton, but very impressed with the minutes he's had here first half. A minute or two ago, he had a ball at his feet, and he had no problems running and dribbling, trying to take on these older players.
Edgar Monroy wants to curve another one into the box. The second chance is in for Corvallis. Spencer Vingelin cleans it up off the carom, and Corvallis has scored 3 first-half goals.
Again, Corvallis benefited from Edgar's willingness to shoot from distance. Zach Cisneros did a good job getting his hands on the ball. Probably wishes he just parried it out for a corner kick. But the South coaches are asking the assistant referee how the goal scorer wasn't called offsides. Now the moment he would have had to be considered offsides was when Edgar struck the ball. By the time the ball was saved by Zach, he looked like he was way offsides. But the assistant referee only has one thing to do in that spot, and that's look down the line there. So it's feeling like maybe he was offsides, but it's kind of a decision that usually is not mistaken by the officials.
He was all alone, and you could see Spencer after he kicked that ball into the net. He even looked over at the referee essentially to say, is this going to count? Am I good, or are you going to take that goal away? And to his happiness, and I don't know if I would say happy surprise, but to his pleasure, the flag did not go up. His goal counts. Spencer Vingelin in the books, and Corvallis on top and in command over South Albany, 2 teams we really thought were evenly matched, and they are talent-wise. I mean, South Albany could absolutely come back in this one, but right now Corvallis looking like the team in control, coming in at 5-5 on the year. That number is a little bit skewed by the early season forfeits due to eligibility issues, but they're 4-0 in league. South Albany right there at 4-1 in Mid-Willamette Conference play. So whoever wins this one essentially would be at the top of the conference standings. And Corvallis showing they deserve to be right there. Chris Monroy Torres with it for South Albany. Just under 4 minutes to play in the first half, and we'll see what South Albany can put together before the intermission. It's going to be a tough deficit to come back from for South Albany in the final 40 as Carlos Reyes Aviles into the box, hounded by Jackson Myers, and Eric Ponce was the first one there. Carlos in a trio gets by them, and his right-footed shot tails away.
So South Albany, it's kind of odd to say they're down by 3 goals in the first half still, but they haven't played poorly in terms of the way they've gotten forward. The 2 games I saw previously, I didn't see that quality out of them, and one of them was that loss to Central, and the other one was a comeback win over their rivals West Albany. But both games they didn't play as clean as they're playing here, so they're probably going to feel hard done that they're down 3-0. But it also is probably a credit to the type of team Corvallis is, where they're playing even in terms of possession, but they're just so much more dangerous going forward. One of the things I do see in common, though, Josh, tonight from that Central game, Central had a forward who is no longer even on their roster. I'm not so sure if he's still in their program, but he had a career night against South Albany that night. Scoring the winning goal late in the game. But what I was struck by is how often he was so open, and South's inability to find him, and they eventually punished him for it. So not that Edgar's looked to dominate this game, but he's had 3 or 4 strikes on goal, and it seems like you want to maybe put somebody out there, keep an eye on him.
Long pass trying to get South Albany in position is headed away well by Jackson Myers. Cutting Daniel Martinez, didn't have a chance, but South Albany still pressing as Carlos Monroy Torres battles with Mauricio Nieves Brunel. Final 100 seconds of this first half with Corvallis already 3 goals in this match. They've been impressive offensively of late, scoring 5 goals against Crescent Valley and 10 to start this conference season against Dallas. Gus Lursak at his right foot, grounds one into Nunez, but pops this one too high.
It's good effort on tracking back to play defense and make that hard, because that was a good ball, diagonal ball in. The guy was running the way he should, so that was a dangerous opportunity, more so than maybe it looked, but then the South defender did well to cut that ball out. As I look, kind of wondering how Edgar is getting so much play, and really, again, it's a credit. Remember, he's played forward his first 3 years. Now he's playing in midfield. So while I'm sitting here thinking, I'll be interested to see what South Albany does at halftime as far as any adjustments and trying to keep an eye on Edgar. It's also to his credit that he is able to drop in and find the game in dangerous spots. Well, everybody knows who he is, but he's still able to get himself in good positions.
Last chance for Corvallis before halftime. Mauricio Nieves Brunel has it taken away. Carlos Reyes Aviles ahead. Jonah Craig steals it. Time ticking down with 5 seconds to go. And Jonah Craig will not have enough time to do anything with it here. And after 40 minutes of play, Corvallis leading 3-0. Edgar Monroy in the 25th minute. Joe Nunez in the 32nd, and in the 35th minute off a rebound from the goalie, Spencer Vingelen clears it in the back of the net, and Corvallis takes a 3-0 lead at the halftime break. This broadcast of Mid-Willamette Conference Soccer brought to you by Even Flow Plumbing. Even Flow Plumbing specializes in complete plumbing and drain cleaning services. Their flat rates mean no surprises at the end of the job. When you need a pro, go with the flow, Even Flow Plumbing. You can find them at 541-738-8853. Also, Praise Jesus, a new food truck to the Corvallis, Albany area, and a proud supporter of high school sports, offering gourmet grilled cheese sandwiches with soups and sides featuring fresh local produce. Praise Jesus is ready to come to your event or workplace. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We'll step aside for the halftime intermission and come back with Corvallis leading 3-0 over South Albany. We'll see if the Redhawks can come back into it. This is high school soccer on Oregon Sports Beat.
Yes, go. Come on. You're as smart as another boy. Come on.
Come on, stop. Will one of you take a picture?
Yeah, here.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Bob Holt Stadium at Corvallis High School, where the halftime score is 3-0 in favor of the defending state champions and the host Corvallis Spartans against the visiting South Albany Redhawks, a team with familiarity, playing each other twice last season. South Albany getting the win in the regular season, Corvallis revenge in the postseason, and Corvallis all over the board and all on top here so far tonight through 40 minutes, getting 3 goals. I'm Josh Worden on Oregon Sports Beat alongside Tony Vandermeer. Tony, if you had seen 3-0 through the halftime break, how surprising would that be to you for this score, Corvallis on top?
I'm not so sure I'd been incredibly surprised, because Corvallis has shown me a lot.
As Mauricio Nieves Bernal, a quick chance right out of the gate in the second half, cuts it inside the far post.
That seems to continue the pattern that crept into the game about 15 minutes in when Edgar scored that first goal. So it wouldn't have surprised me, because Corvallis has gained so much confidence and such a quality side. But what did surprise me was the way that the half played out, that South Albany actually played quite well. And so now with this start in the second half, South Albany is going to start having to ask themselves some questions about their character and what kind of squad they want to be for the rest of the year. So that, again, it's hard to blame anybody on the South for that goal, but they still have a responsibility to make a bit of a response here and put some fight into this game.
Well, if there was any question of Corvallis letting up after a solid first half of play, Mauricio Nieves Bernal puts that to rest, scoring 24 seconds into the second half as Jackson Myers clears this one away for Corvallis. Mauricio just inside the far post, and Corvallis already putting up 4 goals in today's game. They put up high numbers of goals so far. I mean, they had 10 against Dallas. They had 5 against Crescent Valley. But to be frank, I mean, those teams are near the bottom of the standings. So to score 4 against a team like South Albany, which had only allowed 4 goals in their last 2 matches combined, in their last 160 minutes of soccer, to do that in 40 minutes and 24 seconds of play, to score 4 goals is impressive.
Coach Tweeten at halftime, he mixed it up a little bit in his back 3. He put Diego Ramirez, who'd been the central defender, out on the right side, and put one of the lower twins in as a center fullback. It'll be interesting to see if that's something he's looking for a long-term change-up.
Moises Quijada trying to weave around defenders, but South Albany able to end that attack quickly. Carlos Reyes Avila streaking down the far sideline, has Jose Zaragoza Perez alongside him, but the Corvallis defense is strong. Spencer Vingelen, who also has a goal to his name tonight, gets the defensive stop. Zaragoza Perez misplays that one, but getting it right back.
Corvallis done a pretty good job the entire night as far as knowing where Carlos is at, and right there where he had to speed up, he still was kind of hemmed in by a defender that was ready to address him and one that was tracking back hard. They made it hard for Carlos to get some space and be successful.
Edgar Monroy trying to set up Naif Al-Sharif for Mauricio Nieves Bernal. And kicked away by Zachary Cisneros. In goal on the opposite side is Max Kelly for Corvallis. Of late, the Spartans had split halves between Kelly and Mellinger. They do so tonight as Chris Monroy Torres hits the deck for South Albany, but pops right back up. They've switched halves recently, but now they switch which half. Normally it's Max Kelly getting the start and Mellinger coming in to replace him. They do the opposite tonight as Monroy Torres tries to test Kelly and bounces off the crossbar. Kelly assuming that one would not end up just below, and he was correct.
That was a good look from Chris Monroy, and some confidence he has in the past at the JV level, scored some outstanding goals from distance. So it's good to see him test Max at that point.
Monroy Torres almost scoring that one from deep. Edgar Monroy had a about a 30, 35-yarder off the right cleat in the first half. Their cousins are Chris and Edgar, and it seems like powerful shots from long distance runs in the family for the Monroys.
Yeah, I think after that ball clanked off the crossbar, I think Edgar gave his cousin some respects there.
The two meet in midfield, with Chris ultimately having possession for South Albany. Here's Jose Zaragoza Perez, not able to put it on frame. As the rain starts to fall here at Bob Holt Stadium, it was very heavy downpour in the pregame warm-ups with about 5 to 7 minutes before this game started. I mean, it was coming down hard, almost seemed like hail with how heavy the rains were. Then it stopped shortly before the game started. It's been dry ever since until now. But the players seem unfazed as Mauricio Neves Brunel trying to track this one down, but Zaragoza comes off his line. Brian Sanchez too far, and Jonah Craig on the back end of it.
Yeah, to start the second half, Jonah was laying a little deeper in midfield, so he was able to kind of sweep the midfield and cut that ball out fairly easily. Impressed by Corvallis' structure behind the ball. They're playing in their what's become their traditional 4-3-3 pretty much the whole evening. And with Jonah kind of anchoring their midfield, they're looking very solid on defense. It's hard to imagine South Albany coming back into this game with the lack of chances that Corvallis has given up.
Edgar Monroy to Spencer Vingelen. Doesn't have enough power on that shot to test the goalkeeper for South Albany, Zachary Cisneros. It's kind of the first game really where he's been the starter the whole way through. He split time with Jacob Glenn, who was the starter last year. Cisneros transferred in from Central High School, and this is the first time where his head coach, Sam Tweeten, has offered him the full game. And so up to this point, Jacob Glenn getting at least one half of play in goal. But Cisneros has earned the spot and gotten the start, but Corvallis has ruined his debut as a full-time starter, putting 4 goals behind him through the first 47 minutes of play.
Well, the playoffs coming up, I think, in 2.5 weeks. I think both squads are looking at what their rosters might be looking at in the playoffs. So with Coach Tweeten putting Zach Cisneros in for both halves, I think that's maybe an indication he's going to be the goalkeeper in the playoffs. And I kind of wonder, I think Carl, sorry I called him Riley Mellinger in the first half. I think Carl might be that guy full-time in the playoffs. But then again, maybe with the 3-0 lead.
Right-footed shot off the post from, I think that was Brian Sanchez. Almost gets into the net for the first time for South Albany tonight, but Spencer Vingelen clears it away.
Yeah, South kind of turned the tables a bit, taking some strikes from distance and testing the Corvallis goalkeeper. I just kind of wonder with the 3-0 lead if Coach Foley, if he figured he wants to keep on splitting the halves up. But my hunch is when they get into the playoffs that Carl's going to be the full-time goalkeeper.
Mellinger, the younger brother of former Corvallis High School soccer standout Riley Mellinger, now at Georgia Tech University. Not playing soccer, just for academics there. Corvallis also lost Avery Whipple from last year's team, the 5A State Player of the Year. Now playing at Pacific. But he wasn't the only player on the roster with that Player of the Year award. Edgar Monroy won it the year before as a sophomore. Comes back for his senior campaign, was the first player in the books today. Scoring recap from the first half, Edgar Monroy in the 25th minute. A long shot went far post. Then in the 32nd minute, Joe Nunez off a corner kick. A rebound and put it in on the left side of the net. And then in the 35th minute, Spencer Vingelen off a carom was the last goal of the first half, and then just 24 seconds into the second half of play, Mauricio Nieves Bernal put it in, and Corvallis leads 4-0.
As guys would point out, as you did point out how Avery was Player of the Year at the 5A level, that Edgar was as a sophomore. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Usually, the teams with the best players go furthest in the playoffs, and so usually the MVP or the Player of the Year comes from one of those teams in the final or the semis. And tonight's game, I think, is probably going to stamp Edgar as top player in the league for this year at the Mid-Willamette League. With the win here and likely another league championship for Corvallis, my hunch is Edgar will be Player of the Year in the league. And well, Luke Strange over at
There's Mauricio Nieves Bernal a little bit too far out in front. Cisneros got to it, then loses it, and then blocks away Naif Al-Sharif's shot. A wild moment where Mauricio Nieves Bernal had a free run, put it out a little bit too far for himself, and Cisneros ultimately is able to block this attack, at least for the moment.
Yeah, so there's some movements there out of Corvallis High where you can tell they're playing with house money. And so he's very excited about running forward and running confidently, which made Cisneros, after coming off his line, so impressive.
Mauricio is the one still seated over on the inline for Corvallis. You could see him when that ball was bouncing still at about 30 or 40 yards away from goal, and he just started sprinting, even though it looked like the South Albany defender was going to get there first, but somehow he came up with it, put it out in front, kind of misplayed it a little bit. Cisneros got to it and lost control of it, didn't know where it went off the bounce, and Naif Al-Sharif almost put it over Cisneros as Mauricio is able to walk off on his own power, which is good to see. Joe Nunez also substituted into this game just a moment ago. Will be a corner kick for Corvallis. Nathaniel Estrada will take it.
So now I'm overthinking this, Josh, in terms of we're going to see the Ron or the Burgundy or what kind of. Actually, I think it's a throw-in, not a corner kick.
Oh, you're right.
I'm getting too excited over stuff that doesn't matter.
Edgar Monroy in the corner, left-footed cross is well played by South Albany. Counterattack is stymied by Elias Gallardo Rosas. Moises Quijada on the far wing to Al-Sharif. Jonah Craig keeps his eyes up, wants to take it himself, and that shot traveled about 45 yards, but over the crossbar.
As Corvallis, as a program or as a varsity team, gains more and more confidence, more self-awareness what they are as a team in the structure. Guys get to experiment and explore what they can do, but I continue to be impressed by Jonah, what he's bringing each game out. It seems like there's some new things. First half I was talking about how he's running with the ball and getting forward, and for him to take a shot from distance in the field to play like that, and it's just going to make him more and more of a multi-dimensional kind of midfielder. And that makes Corvallis even that much more dangerous. Because with Nieves Bernal and Edgar Monroy up top, they've got a lot of firepower, and to have Jonah be able to come out of midfield like that, it's going to make him even more of a threat coming into the playoffs.
One of the other players will be in contention alongside Edgar Monroy, who makes a nifty move in midfield for Corvallis. Luke Strange, a guy we saw earlier this year at this stadium. Standout player for LaSalle Prep, in contention for 5A Player of the Year. As far as teams go and state title contenders, Tony, when you think of the teams that have a shot to win the state title this year, now any team that makes the postseason has a shot. I mean, nobody's out of range for that. But as far as the teams who really are in the top class, so you'd say, you know what, if I had to put my money on a team, it'd be one of these teams in a group, maybe 3 or 4 squads at the very top, as Jonah Craig will take this free kick, crosses in for Corvallis, and blocked away for the moment as Mauricio Nieves Bernal into the corner and poked out by Ramirez. No, still stays in, actually. And Nunez will ultimately get a throw in. But who do you think those teams are at the top in the state that have a shot at the state title?
I was just checking online today. Earlier in the earlier broadcast, I was thinking of our 4 5A classifications. Each team had a couple of schools that looked like it'd be between those two, and I think that's kind of played out. And this game right here, I think, firmly stamps Corvallis as a top class in this league. But earlier today, Ashland beat Churchill, and earlier they beat Eagle Point. So I think Ashland down there and Corvallis here. LaSalle has beaten the contenders in their league. So I think those three schools are top class. Later on in the week, Ridgeview, and I'm talking about over in the Intermountain Conference with Hood River and Ridgeview. They've beaten each other, so they'll probably be co-champs of some sort. Those are top 4 or 5 teams in the state, but I think truly the class is LaSalle and Corvallis.
LaSalle did get that victory earlier this season. The final score was the Falcons getting the 4-1 victory over Corvallis. Technically, it goes down as a forfeit for Spartans for unrelated reasons to that game in particular. Cleared away by Jonah Craig.
The one thing that those forfeits do is they affect Corvallis's rating and ranking. So I'm always interested to see how those things go. I'm not very good in math. I'm a history teacher for a reason, I think. that the rankings come into this game. South Albany is 7-3, so they've had 3 losses, but they're still ranked 4th at the 5A level. That's because of the quality of the teams they've played. And so I'll be interested to see what goes on with the rankings after this game, assuming Corvallis holds on for the win. But the reason why the rankings are important is the highest ranked team gets to host each round of the playoffs, and that might affect Corvallis maybe having to go on the road in the semifinals, and that might be the thing that gives some team a hope, is being able to be at home against the Spartans.
That's a good point. Corvallis' record looks okay, but not as great as their talent is. They're 5-5 right now. Due to those forfeits, they were 2-5 earlier this season. They got down as far as number 21 in the OSAA rankings as Vingelen tries to play one ahead for his teammate. I believe it was Monroy down in the box, but cleared away, and Zaragoza distributes out to Carlos Reyes-Aviles. As far as playoff qualification, that overall record will not hinder Corvallis because postseason appearances determined solely by league record, not the overall record. But you're right in saying that it does determine seeding and who plays at home, as Joe Nunez steals one away.
Yeah, if it end up sending Corvallis on the road at Eagle Point or Hood River, that could be a problematic road trip for Corvallis.
Jonah Craig wants to turn on that one with the left foot, but blocked away, and Ramirez ahead to Carlos Reyes-Aviles. Jose Zaragoza Perez, defended by Eric Ponce. And Eric, the good defense for Corvallis, which has still held a clean sheet so far against the South Albany offense. Naif Al-Sharif can't quite track it down on the pass from Quijada.
So speaking about South Albany's playoff aspirations, my hunch is their ranking's not going to go down tremendously off of this. They've got a couple of games that are winnable. So if they stay in the top 6, 7, or 8 going to the playoffs, they might be able to host 2 rounds. They're in the semifinals again. I think it's a great season for them. So I think they have all to play for. One of the interesting or fun, crazy things about high school sports is this game might not be even worse than 4-0, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't have a good run in the playoffs. These kids are resilient, and Coach Tweeten seems to know what he's doing in terms of getting the best out of these kids.
Carlos Reyes-Aviles run-ins in the box, still on the turf, but hopefully he'll be all right as Vingelen tries to get it to Edgar Monroy. Ramirez clears it away. Reyes Aviles is back on his feet, but would be offside if he came back to that ball. So Elias Gallardo Rosas smartly lets it go out of bounds.
So both these squads played their rivalry games. Corvallis, we were here Tuesday night, I think it was, rolled Crescent Valley pretty convincingly. But the few days before that, when South Albany hosted West Albany in the rivalry matches, a bit of a different setup where West actually looked to be the better team for about the first 25 minutes of the game and had a 1-0 lead at halftime. And what was really impressive is the adjustments that Coach Tweeten made and the way that South Albany came back in the second half for a 2-1 win. And the fact that the players are so coachable, they listened to what Coach Tweeten said at halftime. It just looked like a totally different game. And a lot of that, I think, is based on the coaching adjustments that were made at halftime that day.
That Central game may be pretty relevant now for South Albany because they had some good games before the season opener as Ramirez, nice little back tap to get away from Edgar Monroy. Then they lost 4-2 to Central and did not look good in that game. That 2-hour film session where Tweeten got after his players, challenged them, got personal with them, and things changed, and they went on a 4-game winning streak promptly after that. Well, this one may feel kind of similar to Central. I mean, Corvallis is obviously a more talented team than Central, but South Albany is better than a 4-0 deficit to Corvallis, you would think, and they seem to come in pretty evenly matched. So they may need another 2-hour film session, but I would be surprised if South Albany is able to respond to this one since they've already had a showing they were disappointed with and came back better after that.
Yeah, and coming in, they with the 9-team league, each round of play, one of the 9 teams is going to have a bye, and South is at the end of the season, so they're only have 2 more games after this. They host Crescent Valley and then a pretty challenging road trip to Silverton. But if they win those 2, they're likely to still finish second place in conference and have a good ranking. But there's work to do because neither one of those games are games that they're that much more dominant than their opponent. Corvallis ends up with 3 games that I think are going to be fairly manageable for them.
Joe Nunez trying to cut inside Daniel Ramirez. Moises Quijada with it outside the box. Slide tackle sends him to the turf. Halfway through the second half, Corvallis already with 1 goal after halftime. It came 24 seconds into the half. Trying to add 1 more onto it. The curl almost gets to Joe Nunez off the cross from Spencer Vingelen. Going against Diego Ramirez, and Joe Nunez finds the good defense of Ramirez to be too much. Good crowd on hand here at Bob Holt Stadium at Spartan Field. Thanks for joining us on Oregon Sports Beat. I'm Josh Worden alongside Tony Vandermeer for a rematch of some exciting soccer from last year. We had the broadcast of last year's regular season game between these 2 teams out at South Albany. There was a scoreless tie through most of this game. Edgar Monroy almost getting back to it, but Cisneros gets a hand on it. With less than 60 seconds to play last year, Ozzy Ramirez scored on a free kick. They've not scored yet tonight. Martinez into the box for South Albany, but just past the right post for the Redhawks. Daniel Martinez, the junior forward, trying to get on the board for the Redhawks.
Yeah, it's good positive play by Daniel. He tried to get his speed up, and he was anxious to get a shot. It didn't quite get on frame, but that's good good mentality on his part. Something for him to build on because he's got a great game. He hasn't had he's battling an injury right now. Hasn't had much chance to show it the last few weeks, but that's a good positive run on his part.
Gus Lursak checks in for Corvallis. Sam Tweeten will have his hands full responding to this one for the Redhawks. I mean, a lot could change in the final 18 minutes in terms of the story of this game and the momentum at the close of it. But as it stands, Corvallis has dominated, and South Albany will need to regroup before facing Crescent Valley at home for the next game, which is on Tuesday. Sam Tweeten, the first-year head coach at South Albany, who wanted to get hired to work in the school when he took over head coaching duties at South Albany. It didn't work out initially, but he did just get hired to work in the building at South Albany High as a student support and special ed assistant there with the South Albany High School. So he'll start on Monday, actually. So congratulations to him on adding that to his duty, something he is happy with and wanted to do from the beginning, in addition to his job at South Albany, where he's got his Red Hawk team at 7-3 overall and 4-1 in league.
That's a great move on the part of South Albany administration. Get Sam into the building so he can build some year-round relationships. Coaches that aren't in the building, that's a hard sell. So for him to be able to get work there, but also it's going to help him in his coaching, to be honest, to see kids in the high school setting. Sam's, I know his playing pedigree growing up in Colorado, high school soccer wasn't as important as club soccer, and so I think he was a little bit surprised with how important high school soccer is in Oregon for these kids. And what's really going to be helpful is for him to see these kids year-round during the school year.
Tapped out by Joe Nunez. Now, Tony, when you were coach of South Albany last year, you were still teaching there, and you still do teach at South Albany, even though you're not a coach with the program anymore. How much of a difference does that make to not only be the coach, but to spend the school hours in there in the building, sometimes having the kids in class or seeing them in the hallways? How important is that to be a teacher and a coach at the same high school?
I think it's critically important, and so it's not a coincidence that both these programs that have great tradition and become good rivals in this conference have had coaches that are in the building. And Corvallis High has had that for over 30 years. Chad, growing up being a student at Corvallis High, dreamed about doing what he's doing now, and it's one of those things where folks might say, "Gosh, are you overemphasizing sport?" And I think what you're doing is emphasizing character and character development. And so it'll be interesting to see how Sam gets a chance to unfold those things.
Chad Foley, in his 5th year at Corvallis High School, is also a social studies and health teacher in the building here at CHS, as ball gone out for a goal kick and a good defense for Corvallis. This production of high school soccer also brought to you by Even Flow Plumbing. Even Flow Plumbing, specializing in complete plumbing and drain cleaning services. Their flat rates mean no surprises at the end of the job. When you need a pro, go with the flow. Even Flow Plumbing. 541-738-8853 is their phone number. Even Flow Plumbing. Naif Al-Sharif checks into this game and immediately in the mix for Corvallis. And then some contacts where Daniel Martinez goes to the turf, and a yellow card issued to Gerardo Gonzalez.
I didn't get a chance to see that. I know Daniel's is battling a thigh or hip injury, and he might have got hit where the pain is there. Not so sure that was a yellow card.
So Gerardo, who came in as a substitute here in the second half, will have to sub out due to the yellow card. And he is replaced by Jesus Pulido, a sophomore. I think that's free kick just over the goal. In fact, I think that was Ian Spahar actually who came in, or at least he's on the field right now. Ian, who's a senior midfielder for the Spartans.
Good chance for the senior to get some playing time. I think he was one of the players that got some minutes towards the end of the Crescent Valley game the other night. That's one of the nice traditions that Chad's maintained, that trying to get a lot of playing time and good experience for all of the kids. Sometimes it's hard sitting over there cold, not playing a whole bunch, but so many other side pieces to these programs, both these schools, in terms of the camaraderie, the collaboration that goes on through the practice sessions. And I think even the starter players appreciate what the bench players can do as far as their contributions in practice and whatnot.
Jesus Pulido is also on the field for Corvallis. John Foltz also entered for the Spartans a few minutes ago. Looks like the officials chatting over on the sideline about a substitution or some issue over with Sam Tweeten. Thomas Garcia over on that far sideline for South Albany, getting it sorted out. Getting back ready to play with Corvallis leading 4-0 over South Albany. Almost all the scoring coming in the first half. 3 goals before the intermission, and then 1 more just 24 seconds into the second half. Been scoreless since then, however. Corvallis trying to get momentum into a matchup with Lebanon next on tap, a Monday late afternoon edition on the road for Corvallis at 4:30. Foltz ahead to Naif Al-Sharif. Controls it to Jonah Craig, who finds Nunez. Pulido streaking behind him. Ahead to Spahar, left-footed tap to Naif Al-Sharif, who's hit, and it looks like he was in the box. Will they give him a penalty?
I think they did. Out of the fringe of the box, and if he calls it a penalty, he's sitting in the box, and the kid does get a penalty kick. Not quite sure that part of the field, that kind of a foul that in a 4-0 game, that's making a lot of sense to the South Albany players.
Naif Al-Sharif, a junior, knocked down just right on the edge of the box, and Zachary Cisneros will try to block this shot from Naif Al-Sharif. 13 minutes to play. Will Corvallis take an even more commanding 5-0 lead, or could South Albany get some momentum and keep it at a 4-goal margin? Al-Sharif blocked by Cisneros. The rebound, however, is in from Naif Al-Sharif, but will it count?
Well, the referee's made a call. I'm not quite sure the call he made.
Did Cisneros come off his line too quickly, perhaps?
Yeah, I think that's the determination he came up with.
I mean, there'd be no worry about offside on a penalty kick. That's negated, right? So
right. So I'm wondering if the referee second-guessed that he blew his whistle so quickly that on the follow-up goal that he would have just allowed it.
So Al-Sharif went straight on the first time. Second time goes right side of the net and puts it through. 5-0, Corvallis leading over the team trailing right behind them in the league standings at 4-1, and Corvallis looking like they're going to stay undefeated, getting to 5-0 with a 5-0 lead over the Red Hawks.
So even though Corvallis, they got 3 games left, I think, after this.
A red card issued after that goal to South Albany's Anthony Areola Flores. Carlos Reyes-Aviles giving a defense for his teammate. Must have been something Anthony said, because both teams were back on their own sides, getting ready for the kickoff afterwards. Anthony was somewhat near to the official, but he wasn't doing anything. And either something he said, or I don't know what it was, but he's being sent off with a red card.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that there's some profanity involved. Referee's given a clear explanation to Coach Tweeten. And even though Carlos Reyes was trying to talk to the referee and find out what was happening, and my hunch is something like that drastic in this kind of a situation was something the referee had no choice but to do.
How often do you see a straight red in that situation? I mean, not even go to a yellow, but straight red right there.
Well, yeah, I think in high school soccer, it's a bit of a different interpretation that profanity, especially if it's directed at somebody, there is no recourse. You have to go straight to the red.
Well, Anthony Areola Flores sent off, so South Albany, not only trailing 5-0, will have to play with 10 players for the remaining 13 minutes and change of this contest. At this point, it was already just a matter of trying to finish out the game better. I mean, this margin is out of hand for South Albany to win this game, but it only makes it a larger hill to climb for South Albany, but a chance for them to end with some momentum if they can play well in the final 13 minutes and salvage something to feel good about before facing Crescent Valley at home.
So I was saying before that penalty kick was given that Corvallis has got a couple of winnable games and ends up with West Albany at the end of the season. And West has had a great season, especially for their standards. They'll be sitting in second place after tonight. Going into that game, they do have a loss and a tie already, so they won't have a chance to be league champions, but they certainly will have a chance to be second place, improve their ranking, and continue what's been a great season for them.
So Naif Al-Sharif, not to get lost in the craze of a red card and all that mess, but Al-Sharif on the second try on a penalty kick finds the net in the 77th minute. The first one was blocked by Cisneros, but it seemed like he may have come off the line a beat too quickly. Al-Sharif did actually score on the rebound, but that was canceled out. But didn't matter to him, put it in on the second opportunity on the penalty, and Corvallis has now scored on a corner kick and a penalty tonight. And they lead 5-0.
Yeah, being a player down now, South, and again, the second half, being down 4 goals, has been a bit of a slow half, but they still haven't played, weren't playing too tremendously bad. This Corvallis' dominance became a little bit more obvious. It's going to be hard for South to accomplish much in these last 11 minutes.
Finds Joe Nunez on the far side, trying to catch Ramirez tucking in too far, but the flag goes up.
It seems like Coach Foley's taking a little bit of a different approach. He's bringing in younger players in waves and just 1 or 2 at a time, which allows those players a chance to play with some of the top flight players, some of the starters. That's a good experience for those younger players as well.
Al-Sharif trying to keep it alive with John Foltz. A few substitutions awaiting for Corvallis.
The other night in the Crescent Valley blowout, he waited until about the last 10 minutes and had massive or wholesale substitution. So and that was just party time. You get to beat your rivalry as easily or as dominantly as they did. It was great for all those kids to get in. This one feels like he's trying to get a little bit more experience in a more functional way for some of those younger players.
Gus Lursak got a goal against Crescent Valley, one of those subs who came in.
Yeah, so Gus has had a chance to play with the starters tonight, which again is Chad does a brilliant job of developing his team, but then giving players that chance to develop. So where Gus was playing with some of the other non-starters the other night, he got to play with some of the top flight players, and they fit right in. He did well.
Another freshman, Kellen Filker, will certainly be getting a lot of playing time in his career, already being on the roster on varsity as a freshman. He's awaiting to sub in for Corvallis as we're under 10 minutes to play at Corvallis High. One of the things that Chad Foley brought up before this game as something that stood out to him and pleased him with how his team has developed is how well the back line has meshed this season. And the defense has played well. They've only allowed 2 goals in their last 4 matches. And if South Albany doesn't score in this final 9 minutes, that'll extend to only 2 goals in the last 5 minutes. What have you seen, especially tonight, Tony, from how well Corvallis has played chemistry-wise on the back line?
Well, they've been organized as a team, and again, I was seeing the praises of Jonah sitting right in front of those 2 center fullbacks in that structurally, even those times that South had play, like right here, they really don't have them broken down. The Spartans broken down, so that back line has stayed organized. The center backs are being great leaders in keeping things tight. But then again, having Jonah right in front of him to release pressure. is been very strong. But you know, Ponce and the other outside fullback, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name, but they've been really impressive. And they're the two that have really shown me a lot of development over the 4 or 5 games I've seen them this year.
Eight minutes to play here at Corvallis High School as the Spartans in control over South Albany the whole way tonight. Was scoreless for the first 25 minutes of this ball game before Edgar Monroy let the floodgates open with a right-footed, powerful shot. Stayed low, got past Cisneros. And from then on, Corvallis just kind of went crazy, scoring 7 minutes later with Joe Nunez, and 3 minutes after that, Spencer Vingelen on the board. Luke Rebar Bowling comes in for Corvallis with Kellen Filker as well for CHS. Also subbing in for the Spartans is Ian Hale, a junior. Corvallis playing well defensively this whole game tonight as Gus Lursak gets it away for the Spartans. CHS had not scored against South Albany since the 2017 edition, getting blanked last year on the road. Kellen Filker on ball for the Spartans.
One of the things that Spartan coaching staff will be able to do, a bit of a nasty foul. We're not just sure trying to help a kid up after you've kicked him down is the best sportsmanship, but Diego's had a good game in some ways, but you can see some of the frustration that's shown because Corvallis has put them under such pressure for large amounts of the second half. But what I was starting to say is Corvallis coaching staff, by getting these younger players playing time and being dominant in league play with all these lopsided wins, not only do you get the younger players experience at the varsity level, but the older players, the ones that you're going to want to be playing a lot of minutes in the playoffs, they're getting a chance to rest a little bit. And if anything, maybe you get a little harder training session in between games. And sometimes it's just percentages. They're not out there getting with extra minutes in a spot where they can maybe get injured when they're tired towards the end of the game because they're getting a chance to rest on the bench.
Corvallis has scored off a corner kick earlier tonight. Not off a straight header or kick, but off the rebound as Lursak plays this one into the box. Joe Nunez on the far side. Kellen Filker, his fellow freshman alongside Gus, to the sideline, goes back to South Albany.
So Corvallis are scheduled to play on Monday, so they get I think 1 day off, and so with that, with those games stacking up on each other like that, it's good to be able to rest your players. And as I was saying, not only to rest them to keep them fresh, but sometimes if you had an extra day of practice, then you don't mind putting them through a real intense physical practice to get them prepared for the playoffs.
Substitutions coming in for South Albany: Ruben Alvarado Cortez, Logan Bond, and Braden Mesa, with under 5 minutes to go. Talked with Chad Foley before, and I asked him, in terms of what you're trying to accomplish in this game, oftentimes you want to not only win the game but improve a certain facet of your team and build on momentum you've got. But when it comes to a higher powered team like South Albany, the only team that beat you last year, is there anything more than just winning? Is there anything that we really accomplish as Spahar gets into the box for Corvallis, trying to play it by Cisneros, and it's ultimately put in by his teammate John Foltz. Gets on the board for Corvallis. It's 6-0, the Spartans lead.
Well, that's a good quality for, we got a lot of players on both sides coming in off the bench, so Corvallis High, a couple of substitutes that look strong. Even the ball kind of leaked over, and he just beat his man to the touch for the goal. The build up to that play was pretty impressive.
John Folt scores the 6th goal of the night for Corvallis. Put up 3 in the first half, 3 in the second. And Corvallis has looked dominant in all phases of this match tonight. And speaking of winning, as they are assured to do tonight against the Redhawks, as I was saying with Coach Foley, I asked him, is there anything more important that you want to accomplish than just a win, something bigger? And he says, in a rivalry game like this, it's really just the victory. And honestly, it felt like a playoff type of thing to say, because in the postseason, there's only one thing that matters in terms of getting to the next round, and that's the final score. That's it. And to have a game like this where that really feels like the only important thing, feels like a playoff type of situation, and Corvallis has looked like a team that could advance pretty far in the OSAA bracket like they did last year.
Yeah, for the way the game started, I thought, okay, we're going to have a barn burner, and so for Corvallis take the sting out of it with Edgar taking those long distance shots and scoring one on his 3rd, I think, attempt. Seemed to change the outlook of the whole game. So South's got some things to work on in terms of finding their identity and how to respond to a defeat like this. Well, Corvallis, to be honest, is much easier to keep the momentum because everybody's feeling good about a game like this, about a week like this, where they drubbed their rival, their inner city rival, and then the rival at the top of the table in South Albany.
Cross near the net, but will not result in the 7th goal for Corvallis. Albany has 2 good programs in this conference. West Albany right up there in the top alongside their crosstown rival, South Albany. Corvallis will play West on the 29th of this month. We'll also play North Salem on the 24th and play Lebanon on Monday, their next game. That's a road game for Corvallis, while South Albany will play Crescent Valley at home Tuesday. The scoring got started back in the 25th minute with Edgar Monroy, Joe Nunez, Spencer Vingelin, Mauricio Nieves Bernal, Naif Al-Sharif, and John Foltz all getting in the book. So 6 goals scored by Corvallis by 6 different players.
Yeah, those are the kind of statistics that coaches are absolutely loving. To have 6 different players score in a big game like this. Which means there's probably a number of other players that are assisting, and so I think for a couple guys, they may be getting their first goal of the year, and so this will be a memorable night for the Spartans, and it's obviously one South's going to try to forget as soon as possible.
Final moments of this contest as Joe Nunez gets one into Ian Spahar, who almost is able to have a chance before Cisneros comes in to clean it away. Been a tough night for the back end for South Albany. If you were in a film session with the Redhawks, what would be maybe what you would, there's multiple things if you wanted to make a bullet list, but what would you start with as an entry point as Nunez is turned around by Monroy Torres? What would you start with for South Albany?
Well, one of the things that we talked about earlier in the broadcast, and both coaches and the LaSalle coach talked about not stabbing and diving in. I think the 1v1 defending in the back line is something that South Albany is going to want to address. But then also part of this is you just give Corvallis high credit. They had enough balls played around the back and through Jonah Craig that it was just tough to get pressure. Sometimes if your back line is getting exposed, the best thing to do is pressure and defend another half of the field. But Corvallis just wouldn't allow South Albany to do that. And towards the end of the game, when they're playing a man down, it makes it even more of a challenge to put that pressure on. So Coach Tweeden will be probably talking tactics a little bit in terms of how to press higher up in the field. But then he'll continue to try to work with his defenders on their 1v1 defending, would be my hunch.
South Albany's a young team, got 4 sophomores in the starting lineup For South Albany, Corvallis, the 6-0 victory here tonight at Bob Holt Stadium. This production of Mid-Willamette Conference Soccer brought to you by Even Flow Plumbing. Even Flow Plumbing specializes in complete plumbing and drain cleaning services, and their flat rate services mean no surprises at the end of the job. When you need a pro, go with the flow. Even Flow Plumbing. You can find them at 541-738-8853. Also, Praise Jesus as sponsor of tonight's broadcast, our area's newest food truck, offering gourmet grilled cheese. Praise Jesus is proud to feature cheeses from the Oregon State University Creamery Department and would love to come to your event or workplace. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. That's Praise Jesus. For Ryan Johnson and Tony Vandermeer, I'm Josh Worden, signing off from Bob Holt Stadium at Spartan Field, where Corvallis has gotten a 6-0 victory over South Albany. Corvallis faces Lebanon on Monday. For this whole crew, Corvallis 6-0 victory over the Red Hawks on Oregon Sports Beat.